walking the serpentine path, following the footsteps of the ancestors, walking the serpentine path, making our way back home. Hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho, hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho. Following the serpentine path, life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Serpentine Path podcast. My name is Claire Waudia Seed, and I'm a plant walker, song keeper, word weaver, artesana, visual and performance artist, womb wisdom keeper, and your guide on this serpentine path of life. Together, we'll dive deep into all things related to plant medicine, ancestral reconnection, intergenerational healing, womb sovereignty and bodily autonomy, rites of passage and initiation, time travel, shape-shifting, dimension hopping, the reclamation of our collective earth-based practices, and the ongoing, never-ending cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Welcome to the serpentine path where the ancestors have called us back to. Let's start at the end and find our way back home together. Hello, everyone. It has been a while since I have recorded any solo episodes, which is exciting because it means that I'm connecting with some really cool guests to bring on and really cool conversations to share with you. And recently I've been feeling a little bit, sad maybe, because so many people who have listened to the podcast from the very beginning always told me how much they really loved my storytelling. And I was missing that part of myself. And I, of course, do a lot of writing. Many of you follow my Substack. I share a lot of my stories on there. But there is something different about hearing someone's voice, hearing the cadence, hearing the pauses, hearing the breaths, hearing the emotions come up, all of that. And last night I was, for some reason, I decided to write out this really crazy story from my early 20s in my New York City time. And I wrote the whole thing out, and then afterwards I kind of looked at it and I was like, wait, this is not the story that is supposed to be written down. This is one that people really need to hear my voice to understand the depth of it. And so at 2 a.m. yesterday, I was like, all right, I guess I have to record a mini bonus episode. So I also don't really know why this story wants to come through so hard right now. I'm going to trust that there's something in the collective that needs to be hearing this, because it is a really, really wild story. So to set the scene, it was Halloween weekend in New York City. I was 23 years old, and I was about 1 year out of a really, really intense, hard, soul-shattering breakup that, was the end of my 5-year-long relationship with my first partner. And that relationship was really unhealthy and at times very abusive, and it took every single ounce of my personal and ancestral strength to finally get myself out of it. And in the whole year after the fact, I was just a complete and total shit show. There was so much alcohol, so many drugs, a lot of men coming in and out of my life and my bedroom and my body, and just really, really dark times. And at this point, I was fresh out of another breakup. I had gone through like 3 different breakups in a period of 3 months. Really fun. And the first breakup was with someone who I wasn't technically dating. It was like a very messy situationship that lasted for way too long, but it really, really broke my heart. And then the second breakup was with this guy who I basically used as a rebound, and I was doing a lot of whack manipulative shit, and I really hurt him. And then the third breakup was with someone who I actually did really like, really cool guy. And yeah, it just clearly wasn't the time for that to occur. And I was just heartbroken, and I was exhausted, and I was drained, and I was just like, what am I doing with my life? I feel like shit. And I basically made a big promise to myself that I was going to take a very long hiatus off of alcohol and drugs and dating and partying and just anything that brought me out of my center, because I was just really depressed and I was anxious and everything felt bad. And so I was like, okay, I gotta do something. And so it was Halloween weekend, and one of my best friends was calling me all day long and was just like, come on, Claire, come out tonight. I promise it'll be good for you. Just get out of the house. And finally I was like, all right, word, I will come out, but I am not drinking. And my friend was like, yeah, not a problem. And so first I went and met her in Williamsburg at some dingy DIY space because my roommates were playing a show. I lived with 3 guys who were all in a band, like a post-punk band. And so I went to their show. And afterwards, I left that show to go to some bar club nearby. And I got there, and I was with this group of party friends who are, people that you only connect with when you're all fucked up and you don't actually have anything else in common other than the drugs that you do together. But I was there sober because I had this really strong commitment to myself. I am not going to break that vow that I have right now. And so I get there, and I'm just kind of miserable. I'm looking around. Everyone is drunk. Everyone is high. Everyone is totally boundaryless, messing around, doing all of the dumb shit that you do when you're young, in your 20s, and you're depressed, and the only thing that makes you feel better is numbing yourself. Except this time I was not numb. I was very sober and very awake to all the energy and all the dynamics and all of the in Spanish they call it mal espíritus, these kind of evil spirits, but I don't like the connotation of evil, but just these energies that feed off of people's loneliness and sadness and desperation and addiction to numbing. And so I'm seeing all of this, and at a certain point I just looked at my friend and I was like, yo, I gotta go. I'm good. I'm gonna head home. And she's like, okay, I get it. Go ahead. And as I'm leaving, I'm walking to the front door, and I bump right into someone, head on. I run into someone, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And I hear this guy go, oh, shit, Claire. And it was one of my exes, the one who really, really, really broke my heart a few months ago, who sent me into the tailspin of rebounds. And I was like, fuck. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so good. I'm so happy to see you. What's going on? And I was like, yo, I'm headed home. I'm out. And he was like, no, come on, stay. I'll buy you a drink. I wanna see you. I wanna talk to you about something. And I was like, nah, I'm not drinking. And he was like, nah, come on, just stay a little bit. And so I stayed. And it was such a strange strange, probably 30, 45 minutes, because it was like I was watching this ritual that we had done for like over a year's time at this point of, seeing him really drunk. He was already super drunk. It was only like 9 p.m. And I remember thinking to myself, like, whoa, how is he already this fucked up? And then I was like, wait, he's always kind of this fucked up. I'm just also always a little bit drunk too, and so I don't really notice it. And I was seeing it, and I was seeing him get more and more drinks, and he kept offering to get me a drink, and he kept trying to dance with me, and it just wasn't working. I was like so stiff and so like eyes wide open to what was happening, and it just wasn't clicking. And finally at a certain point he was like, hey, like, come outside with me, I need to tell you something. And I was like, all right, word. And so we go outside to like this back patio area, and he sits down and he says something really, really crazy. He goes, listen, last weekend I almost died. And when I was laying there in the hospital bed with like my heart racing, all that I could think to myself was that I wanted to hear your voice singing to me one last time. And I knew that if I died with your voice singing in my ear, that I could die peacefully. That's all I wanted, and I really wanted to tell you that. And I was just like floored, I was like aghast. I had no idea what to say. This was a guy who had essentially like dragged my heart across the New York City subway tracks on a weekly basis for like an entire year. It was, the guy who had always said, you're my person, like I trust you more than anyone, and then would leave the club time and time again with other girls like in front of me. This was the guy who could not have sex with me when we were sober, much less like give me a kiss goodbye in the morning when he left. And here's this guy telling me that like when he was dying, when he thought he was gonna die, like he wanted my voice to be the last thing that he ever heard. And I just had this moment where I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to let him buy me a drink. I'm going to get another drink after that. We'll probably end up back at my place at like 3 a.m. and I'll wake up hating myself again. Like, okay, I'll jump back on the merry-go-round. Let's do it. And I got up to go inside without him. I was going to go to the bathroom, and as I'm walking into the club, out of nowhere, this like huge, gigantic body comes towards me. I remember it, on my left-hand side. And it's like this gigantic Afro-Latino bouncer, probably 300 pounds, like grabs me and pushes me up against the wall. And I obviously freaked out because I'm like, this huge man is literally pinning me up against the wall. And I start fighting back and pushing him. And he was like, I need to talk to you. And I, yelled back over the blaring lights. I was like, no, the fuck you don't. Get off of me. I was really fighting. And then something shifted both in like his body language and then his tone of voice. He just kind of softened, and he was like, you need to listen to me right now. And something in me just like locked in with him. And what happened next like transformed my life in a way that I still can't even comprehend, because what he said to me was, there are people in this world who forget that we come into this life with a human mission and a spiritual mission. But you are not one of those people who gets to forget. You have serious work to do in this life, and you have to stop messing around with these distractions. And I was just like, what? Like, what the fuck? And he continued and he said, those people out there are never, ever going to see you. That man out there is never going to love you. You have got to stop hurting yourself. And when he said hurting yourself, I was like, hurting myself? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just having a fun time, Halloween weekend getting drinks. Like, a little bump of Coke never hurt nobody. Like, what's the big deal if I go home with him? And he was really hard with me. He was like, are you going to hurt yourself tonight? And I said, no, but still kind of confused. And he repeated, he said, I need to know, are you going to hurt yourself tonight? And I said, no. And he said, okay. Another thing, you need to fix things with your mom, which was like, I think the most shocking thing that he had said, because at this point in time, I had not spoken to my mom for about 4 months, maybe even longer at this point. It was the longest we had ever gone without talking. Things were really, really bad between us. And he was like, you have to fix things with your mom. You guys have a lot of work to do together still. It's time that you begin to heal and repair with her. Which I did not want to hear, because I was so angry and I was so hurt and I was so scared, and I really didn't know how to find a middle ground with my mom, which I'm of course still working on, but we're so much better now. And he was really firm. He was like, you have to do this, you're her daughter. Like, get it together, essentially. And then he asked me again, he said, are you going to hurt yourself tonight? And I said, no. And he said, okay. And he let me go. And I kind of freaked out. I didn't really know what to do. And I ran into the bathroom at the club. Dirty, gross New York City club. And I fell onto my hands and knees on this disgusting floor. And I was just gasping for breath, purging, dry heaving. I didn't puke, but I was in this stage of this huge purge. And for 5 minutes, I couldn't get up off the ground. And I was just essentially screaming in the bathroom, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck just happened? What the fuck? What happened? What happened? And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, I have to go home. And I went outside and I told everyone that I was leaving. And as I was walking out, I was trying to find that bouncer. I was like, who was that guy? What's his name? What's his deal? What's going on? And I looked everywhere for him, and I finally went up to the front and I asked the other bouncer, I was like, hey, where's that other bouncer who was working tonight? I need to ask him about something. And the guy looked at me and he was like, there is no other bouncer. And I was like, what do you mean there's no other bouncer? Who was the other guy who was here? He's tall Afro-Latino guy. He's wearing a navy shirt, black jeans. He checked my ID when I walked in. And the bouncer just looked at me and he was like, I'm the only bouncer that works here. There's no one else. And I was shook. I was like, what the fuck? And I went home. I think I cried the entire way home, the whole subway ride home, all of it. And, life went on. And I did start repairing with my mom. And I did keep doing a lot of bullshit that hurt me, but not in the same way. And I found my path. And it was, it was probably a year and a half after that I ended up finding my way to the Colombian jungle, finding my way to the path with Yahe, finding my path with medicine, and really transforming my life. So, things take time. But I guess about 4 years after that, I was living in the jungle full time at this point with my late teachers, Abuelo Kerouin and Abuela Maria. And I had a really, really, really intense ceremony one night. One of the most intense that I can remember. It was really hard, just puking, screaming, crying. I'm surprised I didn't shit myself, honestly. It was a really hard one. And when I finally made it through to the other side of all of that insane suffering, I remember just lying on the floor, covered in a blanket. One of the elders had brought me a blanket and was just like, chill out. You went through a hard night, just don't move. And I remember lying there on the ground, just having some really, really beautiful, soft, intense, powerful, but light-filled visions. And in one of those visions, I was like sucked through this gigantic tunnel. And I ended up basically at that same club. And I was looking at my 23-year-old self. And I was that huge Afro-Latino bouncer. I was like inside of this man, speaking to myself and seeing what he was seeing in me, what he was tracking, and what he was intervening with, and the timeline that he shifted for me. And when I came out of that vision, when it like completed and I time traveled to some other dimension, I had this really clear understanding that I was my own angel in that moment, and that we're actually all of our own angels. You know, I've had a lot of times in my life where I've had very close brushes with death, and I've had things that have saved me. And in my vision, I was seeing all of these times where I was essentially, my little spirit was shape-shifting into other people in order to save myself. And I had this clear knowing and understanding, of course, that like we are all one, we're all connected. Every single thing is just like a holographic reflection of what we are co-creating with God, with the divine, with all of the different timelines that we jump between. But that really we're all our own guardian angels as well. And when we are praying to someone, when we're praying to God, to the Creator, to Spirit, to the universe, we're actually just praying to our future selves that are able and capable of remembering these technologies of time travel and shape-shifting and dimension hopping, and we're saving ourselves. We're intervening, we're interfering, not in a bad way, but in a necessary way, and we're getting ourselves back on track. And it was the most beautiful vision, one of the most beautiful visions I'd ever had, because it was just this clear knowing that I actually always have my own back, and that I don't need anyone outside of myself to save me, ever, because I'm always saving myself. And also that I have the capacity to apparently fully embody this 300-pound Afro-Latino man. Like, that there's no separation between me and anyone else. And that the physical distance that we are creating between us and other beings, not just other humans, but the land, the waters, the trees, the flora, the fauna, the stars, everything, you know, it's all just a perfect reflection of us and an interconnected medicinal web of life that we get to participate in however we choose. And so, yeah, that story has been coming through again. Don't know why, don't know who needs to hear this, don't know why I needed to hear it again at this moment in my life. But what I would say is, you know, I just turned 29 yesterday. And I'm really orienting to the future. Not looking back so much on my lineage and my ancestry. I've done so much of that in my life. I'm really at the point where I am looking forward to future descendants, to future selves, to future lineages. And with that also, with the understanding that the people that we are right now are always being guided by our future selves. We're always able to travel back in time and tell that younger version, keep going, do your work, don't get distracted, stay on the path, stay in your prayer, because the world needs your gifts. So let this be a reminder that your gifts are sacred, your gifts are holy, and your gifts require deep care and cultivation. May you share all of your blessings with the world with your deepest integrity and your deepest joy.
Mm-hmm.